Oh, 始まったか?
始まったそうですね。
Okay, everyone, yokoso.
Oh,
Welcome to Unseen Japan. And for the first time in almost 2 years, it's an Unseen Japan live. If you've been watching our channel for the past 2 years or so, you probably recognize my voice. If not my face, I'm Noah Asuko. I'm the editor-in-chief at Unseen Japan, and I basically run the YouTube channel that you're currently watching, if you happen to be with us right now. Who else do we have joining us today? If you'd like to quickly introduce yourself, everybody. People that watchers of the channel for even longer than the past 2 years will absolutely recognize, I think.
Sachi-chan はどうぞ。
Wait, me?
Yeah, you.
Hi everyone, my name is Sachiko Ishikawa. Some of you might know me because I'm around Twitter a lot. I used to post hot takes, especially in 2019. Not so much anymore because apparently it's very exhausting, which it very much is. And yeah, I mean, hi. I don't know what else to say. So yeah, that's me.
Nice.
Jay Santoso.
I'm Jay. I'm the publisher of Unseen Japan and been working at this since about 2018. Otherwise, kind of work as a general geek and technical writer, all about. Also maintain a Medium blog where I write about like fitness and content creation and whatnot. But mainly, Unseen Japan consumes my life outside of my day job.
Something that we're very glad for, I would have to say, actually.
Agree.
Yeah, myself personally, if for whoever is following the channel and everything, outside of Unseen Japan and writing for Unseen Japan for our main website as well, I'm a translator and interpreter. This month specifically here in Japan, I'm going to be running all around the Kanto region, and seemingly also down south to Kyushu and Shikoku, doing a wide variety of interpretation jobs, which is exciting and a little bit daunting. And outside of that, yeah, I mean, I've been having a really good time working on this channel in specific. I feel like we've come a long way, I would say. I think Jay would also agree that this YouTube channel has, since the days of yore with 70 followers, we're really happy to, over the past few years, to have ballooned up, well past 7,000. We're really happy for everyone who's joined us and who's watched our videos. As the YouTube creator account keeps on, congratulating us on, more and more people are watching our content. So thanks for that little bit of synthetic happiness, YouTube. But of course, that's really thanks to everyone who's been watching the channel. And I mean, we've been lucky to be able to cover so many interesting topics, really in depth. Of course, it takes quite a bit of work to put one of those videos together. So I'm really excited that for once right now we get to just talk about some stuff. And hey, that's a video.
Yep. Absolutely. And Jahangir just joined. Hello, Jahangir. Nice to have you on board. So yeah, thank you, Noah. And I just want to kind of pile up on that and say that Noah and I have been working together on this since, I think it's 2019, right, Noah?
Yeah, I think so.
And
like halfway through 2019.
Right. And I think we kind of had a notional YouTube channel for a while that I posted a couple things to, but it wasn't, we had maybe 400 followers at its height there. And then at some point, Noah volunteered to just kind of take over the channel and has really been driving it since then. The majority of the content is his countless hours of editing. I don't know how many hours of editing you put into.
I don't want to think about how many hours it actually is.
No. But just like a ton of work and ton of effort gone into this, and as a result, we've been able to balloon up from 400 followers to over 7,500, and hopefully closing in on 10,000 really soon. So thank you for everything that you do, Noah. It's really been a pleasure working with you.
Oh, thank you so much. You're making me verklempt. Is there like do we have a Japanese word for verklempt, or is that like just a very Yiddish term? Do you have any idea? What would that be? Like, kokoro ga kurushi
maybe
sounds wrong.
Kurushi, that sounds like very
that sounds
bad.
very negative, right?
Coitus maybe is like the
But
closest that comes up.
coitus, I mean,
Yeah.
okay, that's like as far
Yeah.
to like the cultural extremes as you could get.
Yeah,
between those
true,
two,
true.
Like, cultures, right? Like being verklempt is so Yiddish. It's so Yiddish to be verklempt.
I don't think
And
I've ever heard that
coitus is
word.
yeah. So verklempt is like you're emotionally moved, like like
Oh.
it's making me like you're like making me want to cry, like in kind of like a
Aw.
positive way, like you're emotionally affecting me positively, and I'm having a hard
Condolence.
time. Yeah, control. Yeah, condos. I don't know. And like of course with coitus, for anyone who might be watching who doesn't know that's like Japanese for it's a extreme honor, sir, essentially.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, you would
like
see that in a business meeting. Ah, coitus.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You see that every time that someone compliments me in Japanese. Actually, it's like all you can do is just do the sonokoto nai, and then you
Yeah.
follow with, if they insist, you're like koe desu.
So whenever you are like Nihongo jozu, you're like ah, coitus.
I mean I need first you gotta insist, right, that it's not true. And most of the time I feel like maybe it's not so true, but then eventually when somebody's saying something so nice, if you're gonna keep on saying something so nice to me, I will respect your desire to say something nice to
Aw.
me. And it is a great honor. It's a great honor.
Good.
Indeed.
All right. So let's,
Mm.
before we kick off, just a couple of notes of order. So for those of you who might be watching us live or on replay, if you're new to Unseen Japan or have not, or fairly new to Unseen Japan, then please, we would ask you to sign up for our newsletter, unseenjapan.com/newsletter. It's a great way to keep track of everything that we're doing across our various platforms, especially if one of those platforms ends up disappearing for some reason
Bless
or
you.
whatever. Yeah, thank you.
Dun,
And-
dun, dun.
And for those of you who've been with us for a while and really like what we do and patronize us and read us a lot or interact with us a lot, I would ask you as well to consider signing up for our Patreon. We're going to be starting our end of year Patreon push here very soon to try to get us up to that next level, be able to pay our wonderfully talented writer translators what they're worth. So with that done, let's kick off. And Noah, I think you were going to kick us off with the first topic, which is Shibuya Halloween.
Yeah. Of course, we had planned to do this live about a week earlier, in which case it would have been a little bit more timely for Halloween. But as far as I'm concerned, we're totally good to still talk about this topic. In fact,
It's in the
we had
window.
a little.
It's in the window.
Yeah, the window's still open. It's closing. I see a giant turkey that's about to fly through this window, at least from my American perspective.
Can we eat it?
Yeah,
Yes.
well, we can definitely eat the turkey if we can find an oven in Japan that's large enough to fit a turkey.
Touche. Yeah.
True enough.
I'm on the quest. I'm on the search. But actually, last night we had a little Halloween party over here, actually, and I just want to mention for viewers of our channel that I was a bankara for Halloween. Of course, I kind of just look like I'm like an 18th century Polish ferryman with this hat.
Yeah.
And with,
I was gonna say.
Like I had a lot of people just assuming that I had the full gakudan, like the actual student outfit as well. As someone who went to Japanese high school for at least a few months, it reminded me of a bit of back in the day, but only a little bit fiercer and more Yankee-esque. But I was getting I had some friends message me and tell me that I looked like I was like a 19th century Russian Naval Academy member or something. I don't know. It really just brings out my Europeanness, I guess, like wearing this hat for whatever reason. But
I mean, the hat
the intention
is a hat.
it is, yeah, it's a hat.
Yeah.
That's true. This is like a proper like gakudan hat, kind of. I mean, probably cost 50 cents to manufacture.
Yeah.
But the goal, of course, was to do tribute to the bankara. We had a video about the bankara, kind of anti-westernization, anti high collar culture that developed in the Meiji era and the Taisho era as well. Kind of just about purposely wearing all your nice fancy Western clothes ragged, or wearing traditional Japanese outfits, really stressing more than anything like kind of a rugged masculinity that was supposed to kind of push back against what was considered like feminized Western culture that was, becoming such an important aspect of Japanese society, and how Japan kind of envisioned itself vis-a-vis the rest of the world. I've just said vis-a-vis, which means I should stop talking now. So I apologize for use that word. But we're not talking about the Bankara right now. We're talking about Halloween. And so I thought we would just kind of discuss a bit about Halloween itself in Japan. Sadly, I think that right now, when it comes to talking about Halloween, the really horrific tragedy that just happened in Itaewon in Seoul is something that is probably in all of our minds. So I think we at least just need to kind of mention. I know my plans this Halloween. I really had intended to get out to Shibuya. It's been many years since I was there. For those of you watching who don't know, Shibuya in Tokyo is really the heartland of Japanese Halloween. The only other place that could possibly compete in Japan is Tokyo Disneyland when it comes to the celebration of Halloween, although I would say that the type of revelry is very different between those two places. But after that disaster happened, and as it was developing, and I mean, just kind of watching updates come in over Twitter and over the news, I just really wasn't in the mood to go out to Shibuya anymore. And so, yeah, I'd like to just commiserate briefly with all those who lost people. These sort of almost freak crushing events. I mean, they happen sometimes. I mean, there's a very famous and horrific one at a football pitch in England. Japan actually had a smaller one in 2001 in, I think, Akashi in Hyogo during a fireworks festival. And having been in Shibuya at peak Halloween hours, there has been times where it's been fairly scary, even within just those crowds. So just thought, it's important for us to mention.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm glad that the Shibuya event went off without much of a hitch this year. That was really good.
Did we see pictures of it at all from Shibuya this year? I'm wondering like how crazy it actually got out there this time.
I did share one picture on the UJ Twitter, and there was pretty intense crowds going on. It looked like it was pretty crowded when I was able to see.
Yeah, even when I was out there, just kind of like being out in that area a few times, like around the weekend, there were people out there in costumes and everything. I guess so. We'll just briefly talk about kind of like what Halloween has been in Japan. Because I put like a little poll out on on the YouTube channel like a few weeks back, kind of just asking people, if they were like aware of like Shibuya Halloween, or if they'd ever been to Shibuya Halloween. And, most of our answers were, they either never been, or they had no idea that Halloween was even a thing in Japan at all. Which, of course, it really wasn't until the past decade and a half, really. So the Halloween, of course, Halloween as it's celebrated and thought of is, very much an American invention. And really only existed here in Japan within the context of kind of foreign communities. Just, little celebrations, maybe at like the American Club in Tokyo, places like that, a little bit of trick-or-treating, maybe, like ALTs, foreign English teachers who come here, like having little Halloween celebrations for their students for some kind of cultural exchange. But as our staff writer, Chris Suzuki, has written about for us in the past, Halloween kind of started to be celebrated a little bit more publicly, like in the 80s, but mostly via kind of like parades, like Tokyo Disneyland, or I know, I think 1997, Kawasaki City had like a Halloween parade. These were kind of the first elements, as far as I can tell, that really kind of introduced the concept of Halloween into like the Japanese public. The idea of your pumpkins and wearing costumes and having that kind of creepy atmosphere. But it really didn't take off in the way that secular Christmas has taken off here. And it wasn't until the late aughts that we started to get kind of this party Halloween culture, this really like hard partying Halloween culture develop here in Japan, and it became, a lot of it really became based around, from my perception, clubs, going out, partying, getting raucous, and having a lot of drinks in a lot of eccentric costuming. So as a college student, I used to go to Shibuya Halloween, which is where that all coalesced, and it used to be just, I mean, it was just crazy because it wasn't pedestrianized in Shibuya. You know, as we all know, like we have the gigantic Shibuya crossing, the scramble that we've all walked down a few too many times. But those gigantic streets were not pedestrianized for this event where we had so many thousands and thousands and thousands of people descending to party on those streets, and yet we were being forced through these very small sidewalk areas. And I mean, when I was there, like in 2011, I mean, there's just hundreds of police, which I guess in retrospect is actually a good thing. At the time, it seemed like I mean, there was just like a lineup of like 50 policemen standing near the scramble, just kind of all standing there with batons, like almost kind of threateningly. It was and meanwhile, like all these thousands of people are just trying to move through these very small bits of kind of sidewalk that we're allowed to walk on while the cars are going by. And there were definitely times where you can hardly move there. Have either of you ever had the chance to go to Shibuya Halloween? No.
Nothing about that sounds enticing to me. Large crowds with people drinking, yeah.
No.
No, I mean it's kind of terrible. On the other hand, what was really cool about it, I mean, like you see just the funniest costumes. I've always noticed like a real proclivity for like really funny costumes, like purposefully poorly done costumes, like just very weird, like Frieza from like Dragon Ball, like just hand poorly like painted face paint with like paper mache tail, like purposely creepy looking dudes, in the funny sense in this case, like just all sorts of just the weirdest, most inventive costumes. And I think the last time that I went to Shibuya Halloween, I was perhaps appropriately dressed as Captain Picard from Star Trek. Yeah, shaved the beard, and this was like when I was newly shaving the head as well. So I was just I had a nice Starfleet uniform, and I think the entire night at the clubs and out on the streets of Shibuya, there were two people who recognized what that costume was. I just Picado Sensho janai ka?
Oh, that's a fan there. Like that's a true fan, right?
Yeah, a fan of what the old Star Trek used to be called. Was it Uchu Daisaksen, the Great Space Strategy?
Oh wow!
And then the next generation is just Shin Star Trek, I think, just new Star Trek.
They just went.
That doesn't have this. That doesn't have the same heft, man.
No,
there's something about that great.
Yeah, you got to have like a Sanji Jukugo, Yoji Jukugo to like give the impact,
Yeah, the katakana sounds cheap.
It does sound cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The kanji gives it this really big Showa impact, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like it really, I don't know, it feels like Showa sci-fi if it's like a ridiculously overlong name like the Great Space Strategy, which I don't even know the strategy, what the strategy is in that case. Personally,
survive? I don't know. I've never watched
survive. You've never watched Star Trek?
No,
you wouldn't have recognized my Picard costume either.
I mean, I think I would have because of the memes. To be honest,
if I like did like this sort of thing.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah, you see,
yeah.
guy.
That's basically all you need to know about Captain Picard, I suppose. I'll just mention a few other things about Halloween and the experience out here. Just might be interesting. So the whole thing, in terms of like this kind of transition from Halloween being a foreign holiday to being something that is much more common here. A big thing is like even back in 2009 when I got to Tokyo as a college student, it really was still not celebrated at all outside of Disneyland parades and like then this kind of this gigantic influx upon like Shibuya for like really really kind of hard partying, crazy partying that would just leave Shibuya kind of full of refuse and trash the next day. And so when I was here in 2009, there were actually mass protests against Halloween happening here in Tokyo. All the main commuter stations, all the stations kind of inbound to Shibuya, there were just these groups of anti-Halloween protesters, and they were, they had placards. I can't remember exactly what it said, but like most of their placards and most of their kind of like chants that they were doing were kind of like, we don't need this foreign holiday. Take your foreign holiday home. Like Gaikoku kara no, I don't know if they said like holiday or like shukujitsu or whatever, but like Gaikoku no shukujitsu wa iranai and like things like that. They were quite, really quite angry. And of course, the vast majority of the people at this point going to party in Shibuya were Japanese. They were not foreigners at this point. But my friends and I were in costume. We were trying to get out to Shibuya, and if you got too close to these protesters, they would actually try to grab you. So
wow.
a friend of mine, Daniel, was dressed as a nun, which is an interesting costume. But they actually grabbed him. They started ripping his costume. They were hitting him on the head with their placards.
Damn.
Wow.
And there were all of these police at like all the like there was protesters and police like at the stations, like in like Shinjuku, like in Shibuya. And when my friend was like kind of just being assaulted by these protesters, the police swooped in. And I mean, you can probably guess what happened. They just grabbed him and then kind of threw him out of the station.
Yeah.
Instead of like
course.
stop, like, you're the one who's like causing like them to react is like, protesters or whatever, which is quite intense.
How dare you get beaten up?
How dare you
And
be
I-
the victim? Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, that's certainly how it felt from our perspective, at least.
Yeah.
Now, mhm.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, and I think the big change that we could say is that like now, if you walk around like Japan right now, like all of like I went into like a shop in Odawara specializing in inari sushi, and they had a full Halloween decorations.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, the donkey, the mega donkey. I think
yeah.
that's what it's called, the mega donkey down in Shibuya. I mean, it's just like there's a whole floor that's basically like a Halloween floor.
Yeah.
It's like impressive.
Yeah, and it's everywhere. Like I
Yeah.
was just going to like a kind of like some places to get like omiyage, like souvenirs from Odawara and like from Hakone, and like they were full kind of like blow up Halloween dioramas, like
Yeah.
multiple people, the size of like multiple people, like one was like a Halloween horse like pulling a buggy with like pumpkins. It's just so normalized now. It's just absolutely everywhere. So those protesters in the end
Lost.
didn't quite win out. Yeah, they lost.
Yeah.
For better or for worse. But I like Halloween. Halloween's a very fun holiday. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that even if there's no trick-or-treating, and even if it's not like celebrated in like the full spirit, I guess that's kind of a funny word to use for Halloween, of the holiday, it is kind of fun to have a bit of that Halloween cheer going around.
Yeah. And I think even though the protesters seem to ultimately have lost, I think you still see a lot of that kind of damn kids get off my lawn curmudgeonness that pops up around the Halloween time. So there's one article I posted in the chat. This got a fair amount of attention, was trending on JP Twitter for a while before Halloween, an IT Media article. I have not read the whole thing because like a lot of these rants, it is long. I think it's actually like 7 pages. The damn thing is. And it does have that like damn kids get off my lawn kind of energy. It does make a couple of good points. It notes that this event is, and I don't know how much like actual data there is on this. I wasn't able to dig and find it. The article claims that this is basically like a big disruptive event at Shibuya that impacts a train station through which 2 million people flow every single day, which is not a stat I'd heard before. And I can absolutely believe it, having been in Shibuya countless times. I don't know if that's the busiest station. I think Ikebukuro would probably give it a run for its money because Ikebukuro is just a freaking city.
I mean,
Shinjuku.
Shinjuku's the
Shinjuku
busiest
too.
one.
Yeah.
Shinjuku's the busiest station in the entire world.
Not surprised.
Yeah,
No.
but Shibuya, I mean, these are the big Fukutoshin kind of commuter stations, right? That were developed and like really came into their own like in the post-war. and all three of, I mean, those are just the three ones that are just massive, and all of them are, as I think we've discussed, like, you know, Sachi, you had your poll on Twitter before. They're also massively confusing.
Yeah. Like for
Yeah.
me, like personally, because of the stations that I go, the ones that I know, for me it's Tokyo Station, just because of the Shinkansen. Like finding the Shinkansen line from the Marunouchi instead of JR is like an adventure. It's like being a hobbit and just I'm going on an adventure kind of situation.
Yeah, like I cannot navigate Shinjuku to save my life. My wife can. She's really good at it. But the last time she was like, meet me at Shinjuku, I was like, yeah, I can do this just fine without you. I've been there once with you. I understand it. And I ended up like at the west exit on not knowing where the hell.
Oh, that's the worst exit.
I pinged her. I was like, I got out the west exit,
exits.
and she was like, ooh, you shouldn't have done that.
Yeah,
I was like,
it's a bad one.
It's very bad. Never making that mistake again. It's like, that's only an exit you should apparently go out if you actually need to be going out the west exit.
Yes, agreed. Yeah.
With your life.
I have a hard time with Shibuya Station just because, you know, like it's so disparate, like where the like Inokashira line is versus like the other subway lines versus the JR lines. Like you have to walk so much outside just to get, you know, and like exactly like you're saying, Jay, when it comes to like the disruption that Halloween must cause, is that, and I've never even really considered this personally because I'm only on like the subway lines now. I used to be on, when I was in college and going to like party in Shibuya, I was on JR. But like if you need to get between Inokashira line and like the JR lines, you basically have to go outside. You have to take those sidewalks to get to the other part of, you know, the actual, like, you know, JR station. And if you have like tens of thousands of extremely drunk, you know, 23-year-olds out there in your way, and you're like bumping into Son Goku and, you know, Monkey D. Luffy, and trying to not to get Gomu Gomu no, you know, punched in the process. Yeah, it's not a great way to try to get home after your busy work day.
Or imagine the ones that stay overnight and then you are just trying to get to work because you have a meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning and you're surrounded by people who are hungover. That must be interesting.
I can only imagine, because like even just like a standard weekend in Shibuya, you will have all these people just kind of like on the street, like, you know, just sleeping it off. Like even after like a Friday night, right? And then like I'm just imagining the amount of like, you know, hungover, disheveled people like dressed as oh my god, my 2005 anime brain's kicking in, and I want to say L, but nobody dresses as L anymore.
Oh god, no, not anymore.
No, it's way. Let it go, old man. Let it go.
Yeah, like Harley Quinn. I guess Harley Quinn costumes. Maybe, is that like a thing?
In Japan, I don't know. I don't know if that's a popular character.
It probably is. It's probably a thing at like in Shibuya. I'm sure it's a thing in Shibuya.
Oh yeah.
Thinking about it, no, that must be difficult. But have the two of you ever heard of the most infamous Halloween related tradition? Which it may just be a myth. I don't believe it exists anymore either way, but it was a big story out there in the foreign community back in like the late aughts. If you don't know what I'm talking about the infamous Gaijin train. Have you heard about this one?
No.
That sounds like
it's not as bad as you think, but it's still bad. It's not as bad as you think. It's a literal train. It's a literal train. Supposedly back in the day on like the you know, like international community like forums or whatever, they would decide upon one car on the Yamanote-sen that was going around, and it was planned out ahead of time that like a bunch of like all the people on these forums or whatever would just rush that one train car on Halloween night. They would bring in like boom boxes and booze, and they would just party as hard as they could on that one train car as it went around, and then they would get off like at the next station basically and just leave it like in a state of complete like destruction. I do not know. I've never found proof. If anyone's in the chat and you have proof that it ever actually existed, let me know. I haven't looked into it yet, but it was just this infamous thing back in the day, which, especially now that I'm not a college student, I'm like, I really hope that wasn't a thing. Like there's nothing cringier than
Yeah.
imagining a bunch of kind of like Gaijin Smash style people just running into and like causing the most annoyance possible for the other people on the train and also whoever has to clean that thing up afterwards. So my hope is we've moved beyond the need for such things as a culture.
Yeah, but I do have to say that I have to bring this up, especially referring to Halloween and trains and like incidents, like what happened last year. That was a Japanese man who did that, but still, it was.
Oh shit! Yeah.
Yeah, the Joker incident.
Yeah. I'm thinking about that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just when you mix up Halloween or like an event. It doesn't even have to be Halloween, but you mix an event, tons of people, and just one person who wants to like,
mess it up for everybody.
Yeah, it creeps me out.
Right. So that was that was Hattori Kyota, who was 24 years old, and I forget which line it was on. I don't think we took a note of that.
Was it the KO line?
I think it was the KO.
Yeah. KO Daki, one of those. I always
It's upsetting.
So he stabbed a 70-year-old man. He set a train on fire, and he injured 17 other people along with it. So don't know if the Gaijin train was ever a thing, but that absolutely was.
That was a thing. Yeah.
Which I mean. Yeah, he was dressed as the Joker, right?
Yeah.
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
I remember reading about that from afar.
Yeah, I was watching the news like every day, and they talked about it like for at least a whole week nonstop because it was like such a big thing.
Right.
It's one of those, and that was like during that period where we were having like this rash of like train attacks.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
even like a week after that, there was an attack in. Was it? Where was it? There was a
Shinkansen attack.
Yeah, and he was like mimicking that guy from the Joker guy.
Yeah.
So it just happened like many incidents at the same time. It was very creepy last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of those things we can be happy. I mean, like it's so weird, like when you get a rash of that sort of stuff and then it just goes away.
Yeah.
Because I mean, thankfully, like we had like the arsons going on for a while too. When it comes to like these copycat sort of attacks, it kind of goes in waves. And I'm happy to say there's nothing like that quite happening right now. And the closest thing, of course, we had recently to one of these big, like strange, sudden moments was, of course, with Abe. And when those things happen, I mean, like,
that was shocking.
Yeah.
I mean,
that was shocking. I saw the news of that, and I was like, "Who was what?" Like I couldn't wrap my head around it.
That was by far one of the biggest shocks in like the past 30 years of Japanese history, at least. I would say.
That's going.
Of course, that's a topic.
Yeah, that's going down on like history for Japan for sure. Like I even remember like when that was happening, like they didn't announce his passing immediately, but people were speculating, and I was reporting on what NHK was saying, and people were saying like, no, actually you're wrong. It's like, I'm just saying what NHK is saying, so technically I'm not wrong, I'm just maybe not right either.
Right.
So it's
very confusing.
Because they didn't really announce things, which I get because family should know. It was wild. Very.
Yeah, that's one of those things. I mean, honestly, it will be kind of a landmark event. I mean, in so many different ways. And this is one of these. I mean, if we really start talking about Abe and about the unification church and what's happening right now,
we would not finish.
Yeah,
that's an episode in and of itself.
Yeah, we should make it because it's an interesting topic.
Yeah, maybe like Halloween is one thing. Like Halloween, like
totally.
So let's we can move on to our next
topic.
So if we start talking about Abe, that is just not.
And I'm going to on the fly try something here that may or may not work. So everyone, please bear with us. Me. Yes, I'm going to share a screen. Two monitors. Yes, I know. Okay. I'm going to put in a share screen here, and now we're going to try to go to. Here we go. Okay, that kind of works. All right, so we're going to talk about the Hatsune Miku affair. So this was our most popular tweet ever. I can't remember where landed was 142,000.
Wow.
Yeah,
was
I
it-
think 142.
Yeah. So
Wow.
this was based on a tweet from a Japanese man, a husband, and he Hatsumi Miku Sodo. And this was he basically his wife started to suspect that he was cheating on her, and because he was like happy all the time, and he was leaving the house on his days off for parts unknown. He would go take his cell phone and go into the bathroom, and he'd be there with his smartphone for hours. And so, of course, they didn't talk. They didn't talk things over because they're married. Why would you do that? That's crazy. Instead, his wife hired a private detective agency to look into him and to see what he was up to. And it turns out the guy is just a massive Hatsune Miku stan. So when he was like in great spirits is because he went to see the Majikaru Mirai concert. When he would take off from the house, he was practicing Miku songs in the karaoke booth at the Hitori-sama no karaoke. And he was listening to songs in the bathtub. He kept a locked storage space in his room, which was another.
That is so sus.
It is very sus.
That is
But
so sus.
it was basically all of his otaku shit. Like, it
Yeah.
wasn't like so it was an interesting tweet. So it took off. Like, I literally made this tweet from the Narita Express coming off from having dropped my wife off at Narita Kuko and posted about it, and it just got crazy popular. Comments on it were everything from well, this guy should be ashamed, he should have been having an affair instead,
this is worse than
the,
having an affair. Was
No.
something that
to,
we gotta
to
do
the
that.
to the Miku stance being like, this is awful, how dare he cheat on Hatsune Miku with his wife.
No. No, I refuse that. No way.
This was like so interesting because I just thought like, yeah, dating myself here, but like one of the big sitcoms when I was a kid growing up in America was Three's Company, and Three's Company episodes were always this stuff. It was always, somebody overhears something and they don't actually talk to one another, and it spirals out of control into a thing, and it becomes this whole, whatever. And that was like the same thing that happened here. These two were like living a sitcom when they could have just like kind of sat down and talked about it.
Yeah, it's a true comedy of errors, and if Three's Company was still running into the 2020s, you could see a Hatsune Miku episode happening. Actually,
Yes, you could.
But I'm gonna call out something.
Mhm.
Like, didn't he know that he was being sus?
He did. Yes, he did. He did know, and he was very Hansei about the whole thing afterwards. He admitted that he should have talked to his wife about it.
Yeah.
And it's a good resolution. They talked it out. She laughed. He ended up paying like the overage and the detective fee agency that she didn't pay. She occasionally now goes out with him to some Miku events and participates in them with him. And he paid for her to have like a 2-day Disneyland. So they found a way to work it out.
Yeah.
That's
But,
all
like,
she must stop.
I cannot imagine like hiding something from my husband, being sus about it,
Yeah.
and not coming out. I don't know. It would be weird.
It would be weird. It's just this thing of, it's interesting because it comes back to my hobby horse point that I like to hammer home a lot. And for context, I am a geek. I'm an otaku. I am an anime stan. I got started. Yes, I got started. I know, I'm confessing. I got started by watching like, Dirty Paranama back in like the 80s and 90s and Urusei Yatsura. So, I go way back. But there's also like this perception sometimes, definitely old school. There's this perception sometimes in some anime and manga fans in the West, that, this is anime manga is like everywhere in Japan, which is in a certain sense incredibly true. And definitely like the style has like permeated throughout the culture as well. I mean, you see, cartoons for like legitimate businesses that are like basically like tiny little, or advertisements are basically like tiny little anime advertisements. So definitely like the style has permeated throughout the culture. And you'll definitely see some anime will kind of like jump into popular culture and become like so known that like everyone knows about them. Evangelion, of course, is one of those. Kimetsu no Yaiba, Demon Slayer recently became one of those with its runaway success.
Yeah,
But
the biggest Japanese movie of all time.
Yes, but for the most part, not everybody is an otaku. Not everybody is always watching anime. You know, the average episode of Boku no Hero Academia maybe does 5 or 6% on TV when it airs. This is not necessarily that everybody regards as like a non-embarrassing thing, or that they're necessarily open about if they're really into some part of otaku culture.
Yeah, I mean, and even if, those people are watching My Hero Academia, I mean, like, that can't even compare to, Sazai-san, like, the numbers that Sazai-san is doing.
Yeah, like
Or,
Sazai-san,
Chibi Maruko-chan.
Chibi Maruko-chan, Meitante Conan, those very long, those things that have been running for 20, 30, 40 plus years.
The eternal shows.
Sazai-san is the longest running animated show in the history of the world. It's been on for like 40, 50 years or something.
I believe, isn't it like the longest scripted show or something of all time?
It might
maybe
be
some like there may be some soap operas that beat it up, but like it's like you said, like it's like the 1950s, and it began. I think that the author started in like the 1940s or something. I mean, it's just a behemoth, and you can't even there's thousands and thousands of episodes, and they don't even like release the older episodes a lot of the time too, so it's almost it's like eternally stuck in like the mid Showa era forever. And so beyond like you're saying, like the kind of like otaku shows, the like anime shows like that, like so much more normalized, just a completely different world.
Totally.
As far as this Hatsune Miku thing though, like it's interesting. It's like a happy story. It's very cute. It was interesting kind of seeing, especially because that tweet, buzzed so hard. It like, it exploded with such a degree of virality, and reached, of course, a lot of beyond like our usual audience. And it was interesting seeing people kind of come to grips with this idea of the wife hiring a private detective. That like, I think maybe for some of us in Japan, like that, this isn't the first time I think most of us have heard of somebody doing this in a marriage. Right? Like it happens.
It happens. It's not common, and like you don't know like 50 people who have done it, but you have heard of someone who has.
Exactly. And it is, of course, like when it comes to private detectives, it seems to me that essentially what private detectives really do, like outside of whatever we may have seen in noir films, it usually does have to do with cheating within marriages, and especially in Japan. And so like it was interesting seeing these reactions from people who probably have not really encountered the fact that like, like you just said, Sashi, like it's not like we probably know anyone personally, but like it's an idea that's out there that we've heard of, like that people do sometimes hire a private detective within a marriage when they have something to suspect. But from an outside perspective, it's like that just seems so intense, right?
Although I do have to say I don't know this, so please do not like take this with a grain of salt. I think I heard somewhere that they said it's because they need evidence or like proof of something, so that when they settle a divorce, things get like more favorable on their side.
That makes a lot of sense.
That does.
But like, do not quote me on this. Like, please check your sources, which is not me.
I will happily have you be a source, because that sounds completely believable. If we were writing an article right now, okay. Hey, just because we're a publication that deals in the news, if we were writing something right now, we would find an actual source,
right?
Just making sure everyone knows that we find it. But that sounds very convincing to me.
So I want to pop over. I want to pop over to Paul's question in the chat here. So Paul says, so presumably the ramification. I like that word, animification of Japanese culture is intensely annoying to the percentage of the population that doesn't care for anime, i.e., why does my pharmacy have a chibi mascot? So I'll open that up to you to comment on. I think my one comment that I would have on that is, I know one issue that has come up a lot, particularly in the circle of activists that we tend to interact with a lot, is sometimes you get these issues where like the sexualized part of anime culture comes into the mainstream, and that does, I think, like set some people off and disturb some people. So there was the famous UJ incident with Uzaki-chan's Red Cross collaboration, which some people in Japan had an
Again, I'm
issue
getting
with.
flashbacks.
Yeah, don't go there. It's okay. We survived. And like, but even before that, like there was like tie-ins, like local jurisdictions. So like one prefecture had a tie-in. I think maybe Aichi or something had a tie-in with Norin, which was not hentai, but pretty kind of like Uzaki-chan style, just like kind of sexualized anime. But was questioning, is that appropriate for that to kind of cross over into like actual like advertisements for legitimate businesses, or should that be like kept to where it is in the privacy of people's homes? So I do see that issue come up a lot. I don't know in general that people are really like annoyed by it. Outside of that, I don't necessarily get that sense.
I don't know if like the general population, like I'm talking general population as people living in Japan who have always lived in Japan and who are used to like Japan things, but like I think they are used to it in a way, like they're used to having like a pharmacy have like a chibi figure or whatever,
right?
But I think this is felt, I don't know, like I'm only speaking about like my own experience, but I have felt this a lot being someone who is diaspora. So living outside of Japan and having Japan project like the soft power image of like anime and manga and stuff like that, and hentai, stuff like that. And just me being the face that most people around me associated that with. So that was very weird. So I don't know if someone who has always been here, finding someone who's coming to Japan only having seen that, I don't know how that feels because I haven't lived that. But it is kind of weird to be that person, honestly.
Yeah, that absolutely makes a lot of sense. And I've certainly talked with a lot of diaspora people in the diaspora who kind of being forced to discuss those topics just because of being phenotypically, physically Japan presenting can be very, even if they actually really like anime and manga and stuff like that themselves, like constantly kind of having this is your ethnicity and have that directly linked to anime can be, and this of course brings up it's such a difference between diaspora population and within the country. My perception, this is just what I would kind of assume just based upon observation, is like I think when it comes to like the animification of Japan in general, I think that most people just literally do not even notice it. I think that it's just there. It's so omnipresent because like as Paul just mentioned, about like this idea of like you're going to a pharmacy. Right now in the pharmacies, there's Spy Family stuff all over the place. Specifically. So it's like Anya, like little kid with the pink hair, and Lloyd Forger and Yor. And there's like a whole campaign going on. Like you can get like special like gifts and like stuff like that. And at the exact same time, Spy Family is also running a campaign with Burger King right now, as well, as I hate to admit, I'm well aware. So they like if I go to my, let's see if it's still there. I'm gonna go to my Burger King app.
You have it.
I'm gonna go to my Burger King app. Hey. This is purely for demonstration, the purpose of demonstration. But if I go to the Burger King app right now, here, no. おい、バーガーキングはもう日本の文化になりましたよ。バーガーキングはなわけないだろ。Hey, you've had a teriyaki burger? Come on, that's animification. Come on, teriyaki-fication. We got Anya right there, right? Look, Anya is like chilling out here too. So even in like the Burger King app, I have lost all credibility now.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I'm sorry. Bye.
I'm gonna, when we're done with this call, I'm gonna cry over I almost said a Big Mac, but that's the wrong brand.
That's the wrong one.
I do not have the McDonald's app.
You apparently are not as big of a Burger King fan as you thought you were. or as you pretend to be.
Burger
Okay, so
King.
we
Yeah,
have
I'm
one
a
Burger
Burger King
King
otaku.
stan. I like. Okay, you're gonna judge me now. I'm okay with that. I'm a KFC fan.
That is that's like a very normal thing in Japan. to
I've
be a
I've
KFC
I've
fan.
heard. I have not been to KFC in Japan yet. I have heard
Oh.
it actually. There's a marked taste difference
Oh.
between the U.S. and Japan, and
Really?
I need to try it at some point to see.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, well, I've heard it's a little bit more like karaage in a way, but like fried chicken definitely isn't like U.S. fried chicken definitely is not
No.
karaage. It's kind
Oh,
of a less light texture to it, I would say.
really?
That is a very interesting observation. I kept kosher until I was 16, so I literally never went to Kentucky Fried Chicken as I was growing up because unlike Burger King or McDonald's, they didn't have a fish sandwich sort of option.
Oh.
So I have to say I can't make that comparison. I think I've been to like KFC once in the United
Oh.
States, and I think the first time I ever got KFC, I think was in Jerusalem because it was kosher there. So I mean, I can hardly compare Kentucky in Japan versus America. Sadly, I'm not part of that culture. I'm just part of the Burger King culture, apparently.
Yeah, fair enough.
I'm just going to share one of Paul's comments real quickly, and I'm going to test this feature because we're testing our StreamYard.com for the first time, guys. So this is like, we're getting used to the software as we're talking to you. Did we practice this beforehand? No, of course not. Welcome to the beta. So that's a nice feature. That's a nice feature.
I can't see you though.
Well, that's okay. You
know. Oh, look at that. That's cool.
Right. So exactly. How does a 60-year-old non-otaku feel about an essential service being so intertwined with a children's show? I mean, I'm sure there's some people who are like, they're not terribly great fans of it. But again, I think like we said, it is like just kind of like part of the general style. Like you'll see whole 30-second, 1 minute ads that are essentially minute like little animes that are commercials. Anime characters or made up ones are used in like commercials all the time. So it's definitely the style is kind of seeped through in kind of an analogous way that you would see like Eda era style, ukiyo-e print style, seep through the culture. It's just become another kind of part of the cultural context and background, I would say.
Yeah, I don't think people really care. At least that's not the impression that I get. It's just there. So,
yeah.
It's one of those things where I think if we went to like an Oba-chan or Oji-chan and you like ask them like what do you think about this? Like how does it actually make you feel? And then they had like a reason to kind of think about it for once. They probably would say so like, oh, moshiroi yo ne. It's kind of interesting or something, but like it's just so omnipresent. It's just part of the gestalt of and there's so much, especially when you're in like Tokyo or something. I mean, there's just so much, there's visually speaking, everything around you. There's so many things to kind of distract you constantly. And I doubt that, it's a, I see a Rand name says a kawaii-jan or something. I think that's, I mean, it doesn't bother me personally, but I also like Spy Family. So what can I say? So
there was a great ad they did in Shibuya Scramble Square too with Anya, where she like used the buildings, where she like put her hands up and looked like her up on the buildings. That was fantastic.
That show's so cute. I can't help but be happy. On the other hand, like when I was an English teacher, like from like 2014, and Yokai Watch was gigantic.
Yeah.
I think probably just because I was a teacher, and especially because I was an elementary school teacher. I taught other levels as well, but like my main thing was elementary, which meant that like so many of my students were obsessed with Jibanyan and all of the other Yokai Watch yokais or whatever they're called within the context of the show. That I think that I just had like a kind of like a trauma reaction to Yokai Watch. So like I remember when Yokai Watch was everywhere. That was not making me super happy at the time.
Yeah, I know that there's like a super famous song of Yokai Watchi. And I know I cannot remember it, but I know I will look it up later, and then I will not be able to forget it for at least like a year.
Yeah, I'm very happy that I've forgotten it, and now you've reminded me that it exists.
I'm kind of like, I want to listen to it just to like get rid of the curiosity, but I know I will regret it.
You're making me think of like the Pokemon rap from when I was growing up, right?
Oh,
Like,
don't.
gosh.
Oh, ooh,
Don't.
ooh,
because
ooh.
like the Pokemon, like
I
the
knew
English language
that.
Pokemon opening theme was incredible, but there was also the Poke rap, and
I
now
knew it by
we're starting to
heart.
date ourselves. Yeah.
I knew it by heart. I memorized it.
Did you really? Oh my god,
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
Yeah.
Can
Like
you still do
I
it?
always no. I always like Pokemon. Like everyone needs to know that I liked Pokemon, but I stand Digimon. Okay, this is like
Mhm.
facts.
We know that. I
Yeah,
remember
but
from
Everyone
karaoke.
needs to know that.
Yeah, when we were singing Digimon in karaoke. Yeah, but, I mean, you're just completely right. Digimon as a show was just a better show. So
But like, do not sing
it's
the
just facts.
American opening song. That was like, that's not okay.
What,
I will
the
be like
Digimon
personally
digital
insulted.
monsters? Digimon are
that.
the
Stop that.
Digimon are the champions.
Oh, God.
Look, you guys have
My
seen me
kids
glare at
watched
you.
the hell out of that show.
I'm gonna
my
glare
God.
at
Did they really?
Yeah, they did.
Okay,
That and
let's-
Yu-Gi-Oh.
Oh, Yu-Gi-Oh!
Oh, that was another interesting English language opening theme.
Oh
I
God,
don't know
yeah.
that one.
It's been replaced in my brain by Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged, much like much of Dragon Ball Z has been replaced by Dragon Ball Z Abridged.
Yeah.
Which, oh my god, now I want to rewatch those things too. What was our topic? We're talking about Hatsune Miku.
Yeah, no. So I think we're good on the Hatsune Miku topic. So I don't want to take us too long. I know we're bumping up against the hour, so I kind of wanted to jump to our final topic of the day and talk about Twitter. This is so much
Ooh.
fun, right?
Ooh.
So yeah, like everything going on with Twitter right now. For somebody who might be watching this, like a couple of years from now and might not have the context. So Elon Musk has just bought Twitter and they're trying to move it to a paid model. And will it succeed or will it be a big flaming dumpster fire rolling down the street into the ocean? We'll find out.
Why not both?
Why not both? It could be. It could be. UJ server would be hella cool, says Rand. I've been thinking of a Mastodon server. So we are set up on mstdn.jp right now. I have been toying with the idea of eventually running our own server as well, which is definitely something within my technical capabilities. I don't know if I want the work or the expense at this moment, but that is something that we are going to keep open for the future. For now, yeah, obviously. For some other context, UJ on Twitter has had a hell of a run up recently. And thank you to absolutely everybody who has followed us and continues to support us on there. But we basically had a cascade of like 4 or 5 massive tweets, starting with the Hatsune Miku tweet. Actually, there's a tweet I think you did before that, Noah, that was going big. And then all of a sudden the Hatsune Miku
it was on a serious cultural topic.
Came out. Yes. And then
it was an actual like serious, worthwhile like.
And then Hatsune Miku popped up and just beat its ass.
God.
And then after that, we had a couple of other tweets that also did really well. And then, of course, your Miyazaki Ghibli Park tweet just
our Miyazaki cosplayer is Sasquatch tweet.
Yes, it was a great comment. But we went from. It was weird because we had been in this mode of like, oh, when we get to 50,000 followers on Twitter, that'd be really cool. And we were like, oh, we finally made it to 50,000. And then we're like, oh, you know what? It's going to be like quite a while before we get like anywhere close to like 100,000 or even 75,000 or anything. And then we added 14,000 followers in the span of 2 weeks.
That's amazing.
So suffice it to say, I do not want Twitter to go south. I want it to be successful. And I'm hoping that this plan for like the paid version of Twitter ends up getting ameliorated somehow or ends up working. Because I mean, honestly, from the UJ standpoint, we will pay for Twitter. We don't have a problem with that because it is a brand that we are using to help build a community and to pay our writers and to turn into something that we hope can become self-sustaining, ideally long after we're gone. We hope that this is something that become a source for in-depth, interesting news about Japan based in Japanese language sources that can serve people for a long time coming.
Are you saying you want Unseen Japan to be the Sasai-san of English language Japanese cultural news?
We're a long ways from getting there, but if we got there at one point, I would not.
We got 3 years, so we just
Yeah.
need another 67 or so.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
You got this.
That's right. We got this. We got this. But at any rate, we're going to go where the users go, and I don't necessarily know at this point that a plan that charges ordinary users who are not brands, who are not trying who are not creators, who are not trying to like build something to sustain themselves or sustain the livelihood of themselves or others, asking them to pay for what has been like the same old Twitter going forward is actually going to be a great business model. We'll just have to look and see how it all rolls out in hopes that self-preservation kicks in at some point. If it doesn't, like I said, we're up on Mastodon. We're up on a couple of other services. We're probably going to post to Mastodon more for right now because I like the protocol in Mastodon. It's a little confusing for people, I think, to wrap their heads around when they first get into it because it does have that model of it's basically
I don't really get it myself. Like I have an account which you can check on my page, but
you do better than me already.
So it gets confusing because the idea is that it's social media that shouldn't be controlled by any one person or any one company. So the way that they pull it off is that anybody can basically start a Mastodon server. So it's like if you, like Sachi, were able to start your own Twitter, and I was able to start my own Twitter. We both have our own Twitters, but the Twitters can interact with one another. We can link our servers together. What's called federating them, and I can follow you from your server. You can follow me from mine. We can see one another's topics as we publish them. Other servers can federate with one another's. If people from one server are becoming annoying or they're like attacking others on your server, you can just block that server out. So there's a lot more flexibility for creators to kind of own their own social media content and to not be at the whims of somebody coming along paying $44 billion for a company and deciding to change the entire business model. And not that we're talking about anybody. And that is a viable concern because as everybody has been noting, this is not the first social media service to look like it might go down at some point. There's what have we survived? MySpace is like gone the way of the dodo bird. People are bringing up Dig. I don't know if you guys remember Dig at all.
Oh my God.
What is that?
You don't even know about it.
I don't know what that
is.
So Dig is basically like, it was kind of like Reddit. It was the first.
It's Reddit.
It was the first kind of system where you post links and people could upvote or downvote them. It's where that whole upvote downvote concept came from. And then they tried, I forget what they tried to do. They tried to go to some sort of model to earn money, and it was a massive failure. And this little site called Reddit was around at the time, and then Dig collapsed, and everyone's like, Dig sucks now, let's all go to Reddit. They all went to Reddit, and Reddit became Reddit. And the rest is history. But these sites disappear sometimes like virtually in a matter of weeks or months. There's some that are still around. Tumblr is getting a second resurgence, even though people haven't used it for years because of the great fan wars of the 2013 2018 period.
It was wild.
I did not participate that much in Tumblr during that time, but I've seen the Sarah Z videos. It's wild. The John
oh my God, I love those.
Oh my God.
I was never really I love fandom. It is my my guilty pleasure. I love fandom, but the thing is, John Locke was never something that I was interested in. So whenever I was watching things go down and arguments going on about John Locke, I was just so fascinated because I wasn't invested in it.
Right.
So
Yeah, I have to admit to never having really liked that show all that much. Which
How
thankfully now that
dare you?
I know, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. When H Bomber Guy did his Harris Bomber Guy did his video about that show not being so great, maybe I was a little bit relieved that I wasn't the only one to feel that way. I'm very
I
sorry.
mean,
Loved it.
Sachi, I loved it for the first 2 seasons, but
Yeah, first
went
two, like 3 and 4
sharp
were
off
horrible.
a cliff. It went
This
Yeah.
is
sharp
so
off a
on
cliff.
topic.
3
Yeah.
4 was horrible. Yeah, that's true. It's off topic. Sorry, but like 1 2 is great. 1 2 made history.
Yeah, 1, 2 were really good, and then
Yeah.
3, man. Yeah.
3 and 4
End of
don't
2
exist.
End of 2 plus 3 and 4. Yeah, it got
It's like
bad.
Dragon Ball GT. It's not a thing. It's not canon.
Dragon Ball GT. Oh my lord, there's so many memory grams happening right
I mean,
now.
I had to bring it back to Japan, like to the Japanese topic.
Yeah, you did it. We finally
Yes.
got back. We finally got back. At least when I was talking about Star
Nice
Trek. At least
segue.
I
Well,
knew
and
it was-
to bring it back to Japan, actual. So Noah, you were commenting earlier before we started the chat that
Mhm.
you didn't think this was like the Twitter brouhaha was making Japanese news. It really is starting to, and evidence of that is what was trending on Japanese Twitter today was Mixi. So for those who
would
don't
you like to
know,
explain, the nature of Mixi?
Flashbacks.
Mixi, from what I understand, I never really had access to it because back
Me
in the day,
neither.
Mixi required like a Japanese phone number. Like you had to be in Japan with a Japanese phone in order to sign up for it. It was basically Japanese Facebook, and it was part of this whole tendency that sometimes exists in Japan, or what they call Galapagos Bunka, to kind of like seal themselves off from the rest of the world. And Mixi was its own Japanese style Facebook service. But then Twitter got popular, and Japan started flocking to Twitter and kind of mixed in with the rest of the world. And Mixi is there. It exists. You can actually get into it now if you don't have a Japanese phone number. I got into it today just linking my Twitter account. It is absolutely dead. The thing is written in Perl, from what I can tell, which, my God, I don't know who still writes websites in Perl, but apparently some people still do. So like it's there. So people are like, should we go back to Mixi? But then you look at Mixi and it's still like absolutely dead. It doesn't seem like anyone's seriously thinking about going
Mixi
back to
always
Mixi.
really felt like MySpace to me in so many ways, and of course, like the big
feels
thing we
like
should
that.
mention, like culturally speaking, in terms of like Mixi and Twitter, what makes them both uniquely kind of popular in Japan. I don't know, maybe uniquely popular for Twitter's case, but very, very popular in Japan, is that they both allow for anonymity, right?
Yeah.
In the era when, because of course, I was here in college when Facebook was exploding, internationally exploding, and everyone I knew in my amongst my peers from America and then also internationally had Facebook accounts. But the thing, of course, with Facebook, especially back then, it was really trying to make sure that you were yourself, that you used whatever, supposedly even like a legal name or like a name registered to like a university address or something like that. So there was a real like, push from Facebook that you use your actual name and then also have a picture of yourself as your profile. And I was here in college and all the international students were using Facebook, but all of our Japanese friends, they were not using Facebook at all. They were all on Mixi, and on Mixi, their profile pictures were, I think, the sort of thing that even today, no matter what Japanese social service you're using, you probably recognize, people's profiles are a cake. It's a piece of cake. It's the back of somebody's head. It's like a sunset or something, and they use usernames that were very similar to like a MySpace era usernames. You can just kind of still maintain this level of anonymity, which is kind of necessary within the context of Japanese society, where you really don't want to accidentally stick out or get found out. Just in general, when it comes to your work or whatever it is you have going on, you want to be able to not have your online presence be something that is so directly connectable to who you actually are and your actual identity. So that's a very big part of why Mixi could still potentially appeal to people who might want to leave Twitter within Japan. Like you can go back to a similar level of anonymity, but it's, as you're saying, Jay, that site is, I literally had not even thought about Mixi for at least like 8 years or something.
Yeah. Actually, Mixi from what I've heard. Yeah. And yeah, I don't know. I think you're right in terms of anonymity. I think that's been a big draw of Tumblr. I think I've seen stats before when I've looked into it that Japan has more anonymous accounts on Twitter than any other country does. That actually leads to, it's part of what has led to the big problem with bullying on Twitter in Japan with Hibochusho, and tying back into some very high profile tragedies and cases of bullying as well. So that is never really a problem that Twitter has managed to solve or has ever even tried to solve in any meaningful way. There's definitely this balance of how do you allow people to register for a service and freely use a social media service, and also be able to protect their identities, because some people will have very legitimate reasons to protect their identities. Whistleblowers, people who are need women who need to not be out because they have an abusive ex who might be looking for them and things like that. Very legitimate reasons to preserve anonymity. But at the same time, making it too easy to create accounts and making it too easy to stay totally anonymous, at least to the company that you're registered for, basically means it's easy to recreate anonymous accounts over and over. We see that all the time on Twitter. You can block somebody, but that person will just turn around and create another account,
create a new burner account, and continue to dish out abuse essentially.
Right, and come right back at you. And the way Twitter's currently configured, they can do that maybe 10 times, because there is
That's
a limit.
A lot.
That is a lot. There is a limit to the number of times you can use a phone number to validate a Twitter account, and it's 10. And I've noticed they've gotten a lot more strict about actually demanding after you start using it. Particularly, I think if you're using multiple accounts, they'll be like, "Yeah, you need to give us a phone number. You need to give us some other form of validation on this account." So they've taken some steps to that, but like you said, Sachi, 10 is still
it's a lot,
and you can do a
Who
lot
needs
of damage.
10 accounts?
Oh, I kind of do, but.
Yeah, no, I mean, but
no, but
I'm not going to ask you why.
There's a lot of people who have various different brands or business initiatives. There's people who run brands for other people. Sometimes they'll use their client's number for things like that. Sometimes they'll use or they have a large conglomerate. They're running multiple presences or subsites or things like that. So there are legitimate reasons to have.
Yeah. But 10.
I mean,
it's a lot.
That's a lot.
That is a lot, but again, it's a balance, right?
Yeah, I guess. I can see it. I just cannot. I don't get it, but I can see it.
Yeah, I think on the topic of Twitter, and just this a brief kind of mention, I think, for if anyone's watching this right now who is a fan of our YouTube channel in specific, because I know I've heard more of people saying this sort of thing where they've kind of discovered Unseen Japan via this YouTube channel. We've kind of discussed it a bit here, but Unseen Japan, of course, this is not gonna be news to a lot of people, but it may be news to some. Our real the heart and soul of Unseen Japan is the website. Is the articles and essays written by our wide and a diverse staff, writing staff, and guest writers. And so a lot of our effort, of course, goes into that. But I know I've seen people be surprised here on this channel, when I've posted recently about us passing 50,000 followers on Twitter, for example, that our Twitter presence is so much larger than our YouTube presence. Is really when it comes to our actual way of interacting with the outside world, that Twitter is by far our biggest venue for doing that. I'm really hoping that this YouTube channel continues to grow and that we're going to see more and more people interacting here. It's been really exciting getting a lot of really interesting comments, a lot of really positive feedback, and some really interesting discussion happening here on YouTube as well. And I'm really hoping we can keep that going. And I'd love for YouTube to continue to be a bigger and bigger venue for us, especially if there are going to be issues with Twitter in the future. It is really good to be able to maintain some of that community here on YouTube with the famously high quality commentary that YouTube attracts. So, but it's just where I just thought it was worth mentioning, like, Unseen Japan, there's many things happening with Unseen Japan. It all kind of goes back to the same group of staff writers, and staff in general. But, between our YouTube, our Twitter, the actual website, the newsletter, of course, which I think is an important thing to mention. Again, we're really trying, like, if people want to have the ability to like pay attention, or to keep on getting, like, our news, that please sign up for the newsletter, because even if Twitter goes down, that's going to be something that can keep on going. And hey, please subscribe to this YouTube channel too, so that when we have videos coming out, which we will soon, once again, that we can keep those up to date and people can keep on enjoying those, even if Twitter is having some issues. I think maybe I'll just briefly talk about what we have coming up on the channel as well,
Sure,
since
go for it.
we've been talking for a while. I could talk to you guys for a long time, and we could certainly keep on talking. But I might as well just mention. So the next video coming up, for those who are interested, it's been a while coming now. We had a vote over on our Patreon for the next big video essay. And amongst quite a few different topics, there was some fierce battle, but in the end, the one that won out was When Tokyo Was Socialist. It's the history of Governor Minobe Ryokichi. He was governor of Tokyo from the mid 1960s until basically the very, very end of the 1970s. So right until the cusp of the bubble era. So that long period of time, the reconstruction after the war, specifically directly after, the Tokyo Olympics, all the way up until the beginning of the bubble, the prefecture of Tokyo, the governor was somebody who ran as a socialist Marxist, mainly with the backing of the Socialist Party and the Marxist Party, not the Marxist, but the Communist Party. And this story of he was an incredibly popular and kind of beloved governor, known for his Minobe smile. He was a kind of a charismatic figure who had come off of Japanese television. He was the first in what has become a long line of television personalities who have gone on to be prefectural governors and to obtain these high posts within Japanese government, to be extremely important on, like, the public sphere, in the public sphere. And he really tried to implement all these really interesting policies within Tokyo, many of which were actual major successes that inspired, despite the fact that they came from his really kind of Marxist background, they were eventually adopted by the ruling LDP, the national LDP, by all sorts of, the conservative parties throughout the country, in order to kind of be able to capitalize on these very popular social programs for public health, for dealing with the major issues of garbage. Now, believe it or not, this video is going to have a lot to do with garbage in Tokyo, and there was, in fact, the Gomi Senso, the garbage wars in Tokyo, the horrible garbage wars that existed within this prefecture here. And I swear it's actually interesting. So please. I know garbage wars may not sound that exciting, but, like,
actually, it sounds very exciting. Not gonna lie.
I will preview it by saying that one of the big scary moments of the Gomi Senso, of the garbage wars, was the descent of a huge swarm of black flies from an island called the Yumenoshima, the island of dreams, it still is in Tokyo Bay. And it was used as a garbage, like, refuse dump or whatever. And there was this gigantic swarm of flies that just descended on the prefecture, and it required the working together of, like, all of government and the army, well, not the army, but the self-defense force, coming together with, like, police and, like, all sorts of local officials to, like, physically combat this biblical plague of flies. This was, like, how bad, like, the garbage issue was in Tokyo in the 1950s and 1960s. And it's part of this very interesting kind of, I guess, like, local political, societal issues that existed at the time, and these battles that existed between different political forces that resulted in a Tokyo that is now known for being a pretty clean major city. Honestly, I'm not seeing any swarms of flies right now. So,
I mean, I do wish we had, like, more garbage bins outside the house.
yes,
Sometimes
Yeah.
you just have garbage and it's like, what do I do with this?
We miss our garbage cans. I know you,
Yeah.
Jay, I believe, did a video for us called "Where Has Japan's Garbage Cans Gone?"
Yeah.
We certainly wish there were more actual bins around here, but we can
Mhm.
thank Minobe for like if you're going on the train in Tokyo, you're always going to notice these really tall kind of chimneys that
Oh
just kind
yeah,
of,
those.
those white
Yeah.
chimneys just go up towards the sky, and those are centers for the burning of garbage, and there's at
Mhm.
least one for each of Tokyo's wards. Those exist because of Minobe. He really kind of helped make this a city that can manage its garbage. And as will be mentioned in the video, dear Lord, does this city produce a lot of garbage?
Yeah, I mean, just if you want to open a packet of cookies,
Mm.
you need to open the packet of cookies, and then it has like the plastic thingy, and then each cookie has its own plastic wrapper. So
Yeah.
like just getting cookies, you have a
Yeah.
ton of plastic.
Piece upon piece upon piece upon piece
Yeah,
of
which
plastic.
apparently it's because there was like this contamination,
Mm-hmm.
like poisoning incident. That's something I really want to look into because it's
Yeah, we should look into that because like fruit gets
Yeah.
individually wrapped too.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
like I get it, but at the same time, I don't like it.
Yeah, no.
Because yeah,
It especially in like a place like Japan where there just is not room to dispose of garbage like that, where
Yeah.
everything has to be burnt if
Yeah.
it can be burnt. If it can't be burnt, it needs to go into a landfill. Most of the landfills exist on reclaimed land, and the reality is, like Tokyo Bay has been reclaimed since the Edo era. They've since Tokugawa Ieyasu moved in here, they've been reclaiming that bay. And there's only so much more they can do until the bay just kind of closes in on itself.
Yeah.
So, and of course, as I've just, when you're talking about landfills, that there are issues to landfills, including gigantic swarms of black flies. So these are things that are worthy of discussion when it comes to like these major ecological issues that exist in Japan when it comes to garbage and everything else. But hey, we're going to be talking about this stuff in the next video. It's going to be exciting. We got some other really cool stuff. We have a video about the Ezo Republic, the samurai democracy on Hokkaido in the Boshin War coming up. I believe Nairi Bakalian, who I believe is in the chat right now, is going to be assisting me since she is better versed in the Boshin War than I, and a true master of Tohoku history. So I'm really excited to converse with her about that after that video. Lots of exciting stuff coming up, so I hope people look forward to it and follow along with us on all of our social media, including potentially Mastodon now, I guess.
Yes, potentially. Yeah, definitely there. And just to wrap it up really quickly, so to Noah's point, we are a website. I do know we did a podcast recently, and the person who did the podcast with us had found us through YouTube, and it was like, I was amazed that there was like a whole website behind it. And just as a general note for like anybody you support, like if any creator that you love and support is on a platform like Twitter, for example, please know that that's nice and it's a good way to discover your creators and to stay in touch with them, but also know that they don't own that content after they post it, and that account can be taken away from them at a moment's notice. The service could go south, as we're seeing potentially might happen with Twitter. So doing things for your creators, like being able to follow their websites and stay in touch with them. If they have newsletters, signing up for the newsletters, that's very important, because the newsletter is something that a creator owns and can take with them. It's not something that's dependent upon a single company. So anytime you find a chance to support your creators in a way that your creators own and can maintain direct contact with you, please go for that. In the meantime, like Noah said, also follow us besides our newsletter and on YouTube. Follow us on Mastodon and follow us on Twitter for as long as the getting is good.
And follow me too while you're at it.
Yes, and Sachi as well. And Sachi's as well.
Yes, please.
And plugging Sachi's again down into the bottom. Oh, you were supposed to put yours in the chat and you never did. So that's
sorry. Yeah, I'm very bad at self promo. I have no idea how I got like okay sized on Twitter because I'm terrible when it comes to self promo.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, please follow me. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I will put it up on the screen again here really
Yeah,
quickly
sorry.
before
Yeah,
we go
I don't
off
even
so
know
that
what
you can
window it
see it.
is.
Yeah, there you are. I did put it up for
Thank
part of
you.
the broadcast, so it was up there. So
I saw. Thank you.
yeah, so definitely thank you for coming in with us, Sachi, and for talking with us as always. Thank you, Noah, for
Mhm.
emceeing
Too.
everything. And we will see you guys again in about 4 weeks' time.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah.
Thanks all.
楽しみにしてる。
Thanks
Okay.
all. Bye bye.
All right.
Bye.
終わったか